Mineral Resources and Energy Minister, that's Gwede Mantashe, is on record as saying South Africa will have mixed power sources in future. Now, these include coal, gas, as well as renewables. And businesses are already in the process of generating their own power supplies to escape crippling blackouts that have already gripped the country every single day since 2022. So to discuss further, I'm now joined by Melusi Maposa, Chief Sales and Marketing Officer at Tsebo Solutions. Thank you so much, Melusi, for your time, and good morning to you. Now, why renewable energy? Why is it a necessity at this point for South Africa?
Good morning, Marcel. Thank you for having me. I think for businesses in South Africa, renewable energy represents the fastest solution that a business can deploy to mitigate the current challenges of energy supply that we're experiencing. So it's the fastest thing that if you started today, by the end of the month, you could actually have a solution for a business's own energy needs, operational and working and supplying energy. All other solutions might work at a national scale, but at a business level, renewable energy represents the fastest solution to energy challenges for individual businesses.
And what are the alternative sources of energy available to South Africa right now?
Well, at a national level, there's a mix. I think there's always going to be coal, which is in the hands of Eskom, that Eskom needs to facilitate for the country. And then there will be the other sources that are procured via programs enabled by the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, and that's going to be large-scale gas, wind, and solar. And then at an individual business level, if you run a factory or you run a school or you run a hospital, the immediate sources available to you is to either put a generator on your premises or is to put a solar solution with a combination of inverters and batteries for your own consumption and your own needs. And those are solutions that are easily accessible to business without having to go through added regulatory requirements. As announced by the president recently, there's been a lifting and a waiving of licensing requirements for individual consumption. It used to be that you could build 1 megawatt without requiring licensing and approval. The threshold has been limited. So to an individual business, at this point, there isn't a limit to how much you can build for your own needs. But most importantly, if it exceeds own consumption, you can also now channel that back into the grid. So suddenly, the case for businesses is a lot more compelling. Not only do you solve your immediate energy needs, but you actually have the opportunity to offset costs by selling the excess back into the grid for other customers that are maybe not in a position to build their own energy solutions.
So, Melusi, with that being said, what would you say are the downtime effects on both businesses and South Africa's economy?
There are very obvious consequences that we experience, Marcel. Obviously, getting to the office takes a little bit longer. The ability to service customers, depending on the nature of that business, is also impacted. So if you go into a restaurant, you generally can't have a cup of coffee if there is load shedding, because most restaurants don't have those kind of equipment on standby solutions. So there is a lot of lost opportunity in terms of business that can't be conducted or can't be conducted efficiently. You'd probably experience difficulties in communication when trying to phone people who are affected by load shedding at the point that you call them. So there are obvious and immediate consequences. But fortunately, I think having had load shedding for most of last year, most businesses have found ways and mechanisms of coping. And we are in the business of helping businesses, think around what solutions they need, design and implement and operate them.
Perhaps for some advice here, how can businesses tailor renewable energy to suit their needs?
The starting point is to be efficient with the energy that you have access to. So that means each business needs to conduct an assessment of its own energy use practices. Are you being efficient with the energy that you have? You are not leaving equipment that does not need to be on, running when it does not need to run. So the first thing is use what you have optimally. That is an immediate benefit for businesses. There is a tax incentive for businesses that can actually cut back on consumption. And I think it's something like 95 cents per kilowatt hour of verified savings in consumption. So that's the starting point. Understand what you have, understand how you're using it. And once you've gotten that done, you can start to look at what other projects can then be implemented by a business. So do you need to have a generator? Well, most businesses have generators. They are just expensive and noisy and complicated to operate. Do you need to have solar? If so, what size of solar solutions? How long are your load shedding windows? In which case, what size of battery systems do you require in order to operate? And a business has to think through each of those steps and make decisions that work at that particular point in time, but are also scalable in future as the needs of the businesses change.
And I suppose in the meantime, until that time comes when they can afford renewable energy, what do you think businesses can do to survive this protracted energy crisis and equally remain viable and profitable through it?
Well, interestingly, just based on what has been announced recently in terms of the accelerated tax incentives for businesses that implement renewables, the business case for most of us to implement renewable solutions, which is largely going to be solar with inverters and with batteries, is actually strong. Business is now allowing an immediate 125% deduction on the capital cost and services required to implement a solar solution. And the important thing with that is that this is not a rebate that you will get back from SARS down the road. This is an immediate deduction that businesses can make use of to fund those projects. So I think for most businesses, if they undertake the required assessment of their energy needs, get somebody that can quantify to say you need a system that is of this size and costs X amount of money, they should be able to come up with a very positive business case in the short term. And it's most likely going to turn out to be cheaper to put in a standby solution such as solar instead of any other option that might be available. I think the opportunity cost of not being able to trade fully is much higher than the cost of putting in standby solutions.
Well, I appreciate you speaking to me about this, and thank you so much for your time and joining us right here on All Angles. Chief Sales and Marketing Officer at Tsebo Solutions, Melusi Maposa, thank you for joining us.